My name is Annabelle Rowan. I'm a beautiful 24 years old. And on what should have been the proudest day of my life, I walked across that graduation stage completely alone while my parents sat 30 minutes away eating buffalo wings and screaming at a television screen. What happened after that moment hurt so much worse than the abandonment itself. This story is raw, it's painful, and it's real. And I need you to stay with me until the very end, because what they did to me goes deeper than you could ever imagine. Before I dive into this, I need to ask you something. If you're watching this right now, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Revenge Queens. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I need to know someone is listening. Let me take you back to that morning. December 14th. Graduation day. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning with my stomach twisted into knots that felt like barbed wire. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. My cap and gown were hanging on the back of my bedroom door, still in the plastic garment bag, and every time I looked at them, I felt this surge of hope mixed with absolute dread. Because deep down, I knew they wouldn't show up. But I couldn't stop myself from hoping anyway. Isn't that pathetic? After everything they'd already put me through, I was still hoping my parents would prove me wrong just this once. I spent 4 years working toward that degree. 4 years of night classes after 12-hour shifts at the hospital where I worked as a medical assistant. 4 years of choosing textbooks over birthday dinners, study groups over friends, exhaustion over life. I missed weddings. I missed holidays. I watched my early 20s disappear into a blur of coffee stains and highlighted pages and alarm clocks that went off when most people were just going to bed. And through all of it, I told myself it would be worth it. I told myself that when I finally walked across that stage, my family would be there, that they would see me, that they would finally understand that I wasn't the failure they always made me feel like I was. I should have known better. My father had a ritual of ignoring my milestones. When I got my high school diploma, he was at a poker game. When I got my first real job, he grunted and went back to his newspaper. When I made the dean's list, he asked me if that meant I was finally going to start contributing more to the household bills. My mother was obsessed with hosting. Every event, every gathering, every excuse to be the center of attention, she took it. The Super Bowl was her Olympics. She'd been planning that party for 2 months. And my brother? My brother had a gambling habit that drained his bank account faster than water through a sieve, but somehow he always had enough for a new jersey, a case of beer, a flat-screen TV that he'd pawn 3 months later. I checked my phone that morning. 7:43. The family group chat was exploding. 42 messages. Photos of my mom's buffalo chicken dip. Videos of my brother doing some ridiculous touchdown dance in the living room. My dad arguing about whether the defense was overrated. Jokes. Laughter. Emojis. Not a single word about me. Not one message asking what time my ceremony started. Not one word wishing me luck. Nothing. I sat there on the edge of my bed, diploma frame already wrapped and sitting by the door because I'd bought it weeks ago like an idiot, and I felt something crack inside my chest. It wasn't surprise. It was resignation. The kind of resignation that comes from a lifetime of being the least important person in your own family. The ceremony started at 11. I got there early. Too early. I sat in my car in the parking lot and watched families arrive. Grandparents with flowers. Siblings with balloons. Parents with cameras and tears already streaming down their faces. I watched a father fix his daughter's cap 3 times because he wanted her tassel to sit perfectly. I watched a mother embrace her son so tightly, I thought she might break him. And I sat there alone with my phone in my hand, refreshing the group chat like a fool, waiting for something that was never going to come. I walked into that auditorium and found my seat. Section C, row 7. I'd sent them the seating chart 2 weeks ago. I reserved 3 seats. 3 empty seats right there in the middle of the row where everyone could see them. Seat 23 for my mother. Seat 24 for my father. Seat 25 for my brother. I put my purse on one of them like it would somehow fill the space. Like it would somehow make me look less pathetic. The ceremony started. The dean gave a speech about resilience and achievement and the future. I didn't hear a single word. I was too busy watching the rows around me. There was a little girl 2 seats over, couldn't have been older than 7, holding a sign that said, "That's my mama," in glitter and construction paper. She kept bouncing in her seat, so excited, she could barely sit still. 3 rows up, a father stood up and screamed, "That's my boy," so loud the entire auditorium turned to look, and everyone laughed and clapped because it was beautiful. It was pure. It was everything I didn't have. My name was called. Annabelle Marie Rowan. It echoed through the speakers, bounced off the walls, filled that massive space with sound. I stood up. I walked down the aisle. I climbed those stairs. I shook the dean's hand. I took my diploma. I smiled for the photographer, even though my hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the leather folder. And when I turned to walk off that stage, I looked out at the audience. I looked directly at those 3 empty seats. And something inside me died. I didn't cry during the ceremony. I held it together through the recessional, through the awkward small talk afterward when everyone was hugging their families and taking pictures and laughing. I held it together when a woman I barely knew from my cohort asked where my people were, and I lied and said they were running late. I held it together all the way to the parking lot. And then I sat down on the curb next to my car and I shattered. If you have ever had people you love not show up for you, hit that subscribe button right now. Or tell me in the comments why you won't. I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely trying to understand why people watch stories like mine and don't take 2 seconds to show they care. Because that's what this is about, isn't it? Being seen. Being acknowledged. Matching. I sat on that curb with my diploma clutched in both hands, and I cried the kind of tears that come from years of swallowed disappointment. The kind that tastes like salt and shame and rage all mixed together. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Another photo from the family group chat. My entire family crowded on the couch, faces painted, beers raised, smiles, so wide you'd think they'd won the lottery. The caption said, "Best Super Bowl ever." 3 exclamation points. My mother's arm was around my brother. My father was laughing so hard his face was red. They weren't thinking about me. They hadn't thought about me all day. And then my phone buzzed again. A different message. Aunt Elena. My mother's sister, who I barely spoke to because my parents had spent years poisoning that relationship. The message said, "I saw your pictures on social media. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You did it." I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. And something shifted. It wasn't hope. It wasn't forgiveness. It was clarity. Cold, brutal clarity. I had spent 24 years of my life trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I had sacrificed and struggled and shrunk myself down to nothing trying to be worthy of their attention. And for what? For 3 empty seats and a group chat full of Super Bowl memes? I opened my phone. I went to the travel app I downloaded months ago when I was daydreaming about places I'd go someday. Someday after graduation. Someday after I saved enough money. Someday after my family stopped needing me to solve their problems. I scrolled through the destinations. And then I stopped on one. Colorado. A wellness retreat in the mountains. 7 days. Private cabin. Meditation classes. Hiking trails. Silence. I clicked on it. One-way ticket. Not round trip. One way. Because I didn't know if I was coming back. I didn't know if I wanted to come back. I paid for it with money I'd been saving for a security deposit on a better apartment. Money I'd been planning to use to build a life. And maybe that's exactly what I was doing. Just not the life I'd imagined. 3 days later, I was on a plane. I watched the city disappear beneath me, and for the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't anxiety or guilt or exhaustion. I felt peaceful. Not happy. Not healed. But peaceful. Like maybe silence didn't have to feel empty. Maybe it could feel like relief. The retreat was everything I needed. Quiet mornings. Long walks through pine forests where the only sound was wind and birdsong. Evenings by a fire with a book and tea and no one asking me for anything. I turned my phone off for 2 full days. I didn't check social media. I didn't respond to texts. I just existed. And then on day 3, I turned my phone back on. 15 messages. All from my family. Not one of them said, "Congratulations." Not one of them said, "We're sorry." They said, "Mom needs $300 for the electric bill." They said, "Dad's truck broke down. Can you send 500?" They said, "Why aren't you answering? Stop being dramatic and call us back." They said, "You're so selfish. We raised you, and this is how you repay us?" I stared at those messages until the words blurred together. And then I saw another text. "Aunt Elena again. Annabelle, call me as soon as you can. It's urgent. Check your credit report. Now." My hands went cold. I opened the credit monitoring app I'd signed up for months ago and barely looked at. I logged in, and my entire world collapsed. If you're still watching, subscribe. Please. If you're not subscribing, at least tell me why in the comments. Don't ghost me the way my family ghosted me. I need to know someone is here. 7 accounts I didn't open. 3 credit cards maxed out in my name. 2 personal loans I never signed for. 1 auto loan for a car I'd never seen. The dates matched perfectly. Every single one of them aligned with an emergency my parents had claimed over the past 3 years. The truck that broke down. The furnace that died. The medical bill that insurance wouldn't cover. The roof that leaked. Every time I'd sent money, every time I'd believed them, they'd been stealing from me. They'd been using my information. My social security number. My identity. They'd been destroying my credit while I destroyed myself trying to help them. I called Aunt Elena. She answered on the first ring. She'd suspected for months. She'd seen the way they treated me. She'd heard the stories. She'd watched them bleed me dry, and then ask for more. She'd finally done some digging, called in a favor from a friend who worked in financial fraud investigation, and found enough to confirm what she'd feared. My parents weren't just neglectful. They were criminals. And my brother had been their accomplice, forging signatures and documents, and playing dumb every time I asked questions. I contacted a lawyer the next day. A woman Aunt Elena recommended, who specialized in family fraud cases. I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. She said she saw cases like mine more often than people realized. Families who justified theft as need. Parents who believed their children owed them everything. She helped me build a file. Screenshots of messages. Bank statements. Credit reports. Timelines. Evidence. I filed for a restraining order. I froze my credit. I reported the fraud to every bureau and every creditor. And then I flew home. I didn't tell them I was coming. I went straight to my apartment, changed the locks, and sent a single message to the family group chat. I know what you did. Do not contact me. Do not come to my home. I have filed a police report and hired a lawyer. If you come near me, you will be arrested. 20 minutes later, they were pounding on my door. My mother was crying, wailing, screaming about how ungrateful I was, how she'd given me everything. How could I do this to her? My father was yelling threats, telling me I'd regret this, telling me I was nothing without them. My brother was recording everything on his phone, trying to make me look like the villain, like I was the one tearing the family apart. I didn't open the door. I called my landlord. I asked if I should call the police. He said yes. They arrived in 8 minutes. I watched through the peephole as my parents were escorted away, still shouting, still playing the victim. My mother collapsed on the hallway floor like she was dying. My father tried to push past the officers. My brother kept filming until one of them told him to put the phone down or he'd be arrested for obstruction. And then they were gone. And I was alone. Truly alone. And it felt like freedom. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my supervisor. A promotion. A transfer to the Portland office. A fresh start 3 states away. I said yes before she finished the sentence. I packed everything I owned into a truck I rented with money I finally had because I wasn't sending it to people who didn't deserve it. I drove away from that city, from that apartment, from those people, and I didn't look back. Portland was different. Quiet in a way that felt intentional. I found an apartment with a view of the mountains. I made friends at work who invited me to dinner and actually showed up. I started therapy. I started sleeping through the night. I started building a life that was mine. And then 6 months later, I got an invitation. A financial empowerment event for young professionals. They wanted me to speak, to share my story, to help other people recognize the signs of financial abuse and family exploitation. I almost said no. I almost let the fear and the shame win. But I thought about that girl sitting on the curb outside her graduation. And I said yes. The event was held in a hotel ballroom. 200 people. I walked onto that stage in a blazer I'd bought with money I'd earned and saved without anyone taking it from me. I stood behind the podium. I looked out at the audience. And I started to speak. I was 3 minutes into my story when I heard the crash. The back doors of the ballroom slammed open. My family stormed in. My mother was screaming. My father was recording. My brother was shouting about how I was a liar, how I'd abandoned them, how I destroyed their lives over nothing. Security moved toward them, but they were fast. They pushed through the crowd. My mother was sobbing, playing the grieving parent, trying to make the audience believe I was the monster. I stood there. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I looked at them. And I spoke into the microphone. These are the people I've been talking about. My parents. My brother. The people who stole my identity, destroyed my credit, and showed up today to intimidate me into silence. Security, please remove them. The security team moved in. But before they could reach my family, someone else stepped forward. A man in a suit. Detective Morrison. Fraud Division. Aunt Elena had warned me he might be there. He'd been building a case. He had warrants. He arrested my father on the spot. Handcuffs. Miranda rights. The whole room went silent. My brother tried to run and got tackled by a second officer I hadn't even seen. My mother fell to her knees, begging, pleading, trying one last time to guilt me into saving her. I looked down at her from that stage, and I said, I'm done shrinking for you. I'm done breaking myself to keep you whole. You will never take anything from me again. If you want more stories like this, if you want to see people stand up and take their power back, hit subscribe. And if you won't, tell me what I need to do better. Tell me why my pain isn't worth 2 seconds of your time. I can take it. I've taken worse. The court case took 4 months. My lawyer was relentless. The evidence was overwhelming. My father was convicted of identity theft and fraud. 18 months in prison. My brother got 12 months and probation. My mother took a plea deal, admitted to conspiracy, got probation, and a massive fine she'll be paying off for the rest of her life. My credit was restored. Every fraudulent account erased. Every black mark removed. I got a formal apology letter from the credit bureaus. It didn't undo the damage, but it helped. I framed my diploma. Finally. For years after I earned it. I hung it on the wall in my living room where I can see it every single day. And underneath it, I put a photo from that speaking event. Me at the podium. Strong. Steady. Whole. I have a new life now. A mentor at work who checks in on me, not to take but to give. A weekly coffee ritual with a coworker who became one of my closest friends. A chosen family that shows up. That celebrates me. That sees me. And I have this channel, this story, this connection to all of you who are watching, who are listening, who are surviving your own versions of my hell. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep people warm who would never do the same for you. My name is Annabelle Rowan. I'm 24 years old. I walked across that graduation stage alone. But I didn't stay alone. I found myself. I found my voice. I found my worth. And if you're out there right now, sitting in your own version of that parking lot, holding your own version of that diploma, feeling invisible and small and unworthy, I need you to hear me. You are enough. You have always been enough. The people who can't see that are the ones who are broken, not you. Take your power back. Walk away. Build your life. Frame your diploma. And never, ever shrink yourself again. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Revenge Queens. Share this story. And tell me in the comments what battle you're fighting. Because I see you. And you matter.